This media briefing went on for just over an hour and a half. A lot of information flowing from it. Going to the now official confirmed death toll as a result of Category 5 Hurricane Melissa. The death toll is now officially at 45, up from 32 last week. In addition, there are also 9 other under investigation, unconfirmed, so it could very well end up more than 45, could end up as high as 54 if the 9 unconfirmed ones are so confirmed to be directly related to the passage of Hurricane Melissa. And insofar as the breakdown of the parishes, 2 confirmed dead in Hanover, 15 in Westmoreland, 6 in St. James, 18 in St. Elizabeth, and Portland and St. Thomas, I think it's 1 each, yes? But certainly St. Elizabeth with the highest death toll at 18, followed by Westmoreland at 15, 6 in St. James, all in the western end of the island, of course. And this official death toll of 45 is now equal to the number of Jamaicans we lost with the passage of Hurricane Gilbert 37 years ago. Gilbert was a Category 3 system. This was a Category 5. And while Gilbert crossed Jamaica, the entire island, Melissa really concentrated on the western end of the island. So that is some context for you to interpret the numbers. But the death toll now equal to that of Gilbert at 45. We also learned this morning that 15 people are missing. Yes, 15 people. We heard that from the head of ODPEM, Commander Alvin Gale. 15 people are missing. Some 30,000 households have been displaced. 88 shelters remain open with just over 1,100 persons. 2 communities are still considered marooned. The 2 communities being Petersville in Westmoreland and Duckett's in St. James. Yes, 34 roads remain blocked as well. We also learned this morning 526 schools have reopened. Up to 8 this morning, the official government of Jamaica website had seen US $1.08 million in contributions and donations, and 53 million in Jamaica was offered on the site as well, and these were through credit card donations. We have 4,000 volunteers on the ground in the western parishes, yes? We also heard from JPS that the power is back on for 300,000 JPS customers, making for a total of 64% of its customer base back with power. They were very happy to report this morning that the Sangster International Airport in Montego Bay, St. James, has power again, and that is very important because Sangster is a regional hub. We also heard from Minister Mackenzie this morning news about that reported case of sexual violence, a rape case in one of the shelters in Western Jamaica. We are now learning from the authorities, and I think we heard this as well from the JCF yesterday, that they have investigated those reports, and it's false. There was no case of rape at that facility or any shelter in Western Jamaica. Yeah? Let's go to the break.
The wake of Hurricane Melissa has climbed to 45. Information Minister Senator Dr. Dana Morris-Dixon provided the figure on Tuesday morning at a press conference at Jamaica House. 18 of the deaths were recorded in St. Elizabeth and 5 in Westmoreland. 6 were recorded in St. James, 2 each in Hanover and Trelawney, plus 1 each in St. Anne and Portland. Minister Morris Dixon says 33 postmortems have been conducted to date. Now, over $400 million in cash donations have been received through the government's official website-based support system. That's according to Director General at the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM, Commander Alvin Gale.
To date, locally and overseas combined, just over 14,000 donors have inputted cash through our systems with just over $400 million in those systems. The ODPEM, on behalf of the government of Jamaica, has also received into our stores just over $500 million worth of aid, with an over 80% rate of distribution for the relief items. As we move into the restoration phase or the recovery phase, we'll be pushing out more items from that package. We've also received some significant support for our partner nations and organizations. The partnerships have generally provided aircraft services, field hospitals, food aid, mapping aid, search and rescue services, operational and logistics support.
Commander Gale says over 100 flight hours have been used over the last week to deliver relief supplies.
To date, over 80,000 care packages have been delivered through the national system, just over 500,000 meals. Since our last press briefing, just about 190 flight hours have been utilized to deliver just over 60 relief supply drops. And we will continue to press hard on this effort. The ODPEM continues to direct and coordinate efforts among government agencies, local authorities, the private sector and international partners to ensure that the aid is equitably distributed in an efficiently coordinated process, thereby preventing wastage, leakage or diversion.
Commander Alvin Gale, Director General of ODPEM, speaking at a press conference at Jamaica House on Tuesday morning. Meanwhile, Information Minister Senator Dr. Dana Morris Dixon says the number of donors and bilateral partners supporting the Hurricane Melissa relief effort continues to grow.
Over 170 donors are registered on the relief portal. That's a lot of donors. There are a lot of small ones. I know there are a lot of them that you see in the media and you see them on social media. Those are the big ones. But there are 170 of them that have registered and have brought in things into the country and have been supported by the government of Jamaica, whether it is through ODPEM, the Civil Aviation Authority in terms of getting the planes landing rights, and other government entities that may be working with them, including the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. In addition to that, we have 40 bilateral partners. That means 40 countries have provided aid to Jamaica.
Dr. Dana Morris Dixon, Information Minister. Meanwhile, Commander Gale says communities which remain marooned are receiving food drops.
In terms of community access, there are currently 2 communities which we have classified as marooned. To be clear, marooned communities refer only to communities that are completely cut off and solely accessible by air, where no road, be it double or single access, is available. These communities can only be reached by air. The 2 communities this morning are Petersville in Westmoreland and Duckets in St. James. The 2 maroon communities did receive drops yesterday, and I'm assured by the time I'm speaking this morning, we'll also do 2 other helicopter lifts into those communities.
He says a list will be published in short order identifying marooned communities.
Today, we'll also commence publishing the list of maroon communities and also priority communities. The ODPEM will commence publishing also planned relief supplies such that across the nation our national efforts can be synchronized.
Commander Alvin Gale, Director General of ODPEM. Classes are back in session at over 500 schools across the island following the passage of Hurricane Melissa. That's according to Education Minister Dr. Dana Morris Dixon.
I'm very happy to note, PS, that 526 schools were open. That's a very significant number. We're very grateful for that. And we also know that many of the teachers and other members of staff, they have difficulties at home in many instances and even with their families, but they're still making the effort to come out. And we are so grateful to them and we thank them for all their efforts.
Minister Morris Dixon says work is underway to get the remaining schools open in the shortest possible time.
Those that aren't open, I know there's so many principals who are WhatsApping me about what they're doing, and they're working really hard to get our schools open. And so we thank them for all of those efforts in spite of everything that is happening.
Dr. Dana Morris-Dixon, Minister of Education. And the Education Minister says stakeholders are united on the priority that must be given to getting students back in their school routine.
What was clear from the meeting was that all of those there want to have our children back in the structure of the classroom, and nobody wants to see further learning losses. We spoke a lot about the psychological support that's needed for our teachers, and also very importantly for our students who've been through so much, and the trauma of Hurricane Melissa is a big one. We also agreed that in opening schools, it has to be a safety first kind of phased approach where we reopen where the facilities are safe, where they have water, and that decision is decentralized and taken by the school leadership and the board.
The minister recently chaired a stakeholders meeting involving the Jamaica Teachers Association, Jamaica Independent Schools Association, and Jamaica Prefects Association. Minister Morris-Dixon says that temporary measures were discussed to assist the students affected in Western parishes.
We also had a chance to speak about the future, and especially in the schools in the West. So many of them have had severe damage. Some of them have even been destroyed. And so we were looking at what that could look like, starting that conversation about what it could look like. What could temporary structures look like? How do we have special learning schedules? How do we use community facilities? What was clear from the meeting is that we all believe we have to move quickly to work through all these options, because we have to get our children back to school.
Dr. Dana Morris-Dixon, Minister of Education. Now, the Water Resources Authority, WRA, says it has formally advised the planning authorities against the construction of houses in flood-prone areas such as Content in Manchester. The community is now submerged by rising groundwater in the aftermath of Hurricane Melissa. Deputy Managing Director Jeffrey Marshall was speaking on Nationwide this morning.
WRA does not recommend residential construction in flood-prone areas. We see the evidence of it right here, and we would encourage authorities to find a solution that would help both the residents and planning to be proper, that persons would not be impacted by such things. And we'd recommend that you not endorse construction in these regions.
According to the WRA, between September 25 and November 3, groundwater levels in Content rose by over 300 feet. Since then, it has risen a further 7 feet. Marshall says people often turn a blind eye to the risks.
We would have provided that recommendation if it came to a planning region to say, no, we don't recommend that persons live here. To find a decision on that, of course, is with the various planning authorities, and people will also say, well, it's my land, I've lived there before, I want to take the risk. All WA can do is recommend that if you build here, things like this will happen, flooding will happen, and you will be impacted.
Jeffrey Marshall, Deputy Managing Director at the Water Resources Authority. Meanwhile, Marshall says this is at least the third time since 1977 that groundwater has flooded the community of Content.
There have been at least 2 previous recorded incidents of this in 1977, in 2002, and now this is the third one. I think there was another one as well in 2005, but I'm not sure about that. But I know for sure of 1977 and 2002.
In 1977, the rising floodwaters reportedly claimed 2 lives. In 2002, a similar situation occurred after a period of heavy rainfall. Marshall says back then, the water took about 2 weeks to recede. He says, based on anecdotal information, the waters now seem to be higher than the level recorded in 2009. According to Marshall, in 2002. According to Marshall, like in 2002, the water is likely to flow towards Porous and other communities.
A lot of rainfall, saturation of the aquifer, rising groundwater levels, The groundwater eventually migrated down gradient towards porous. You may remember that at that time there were also ponds that occurred in sinkholes in the porous region. Water was running down on the road, and they were like attractions at the time, etc. But we advised at the time that the water was not going to be permanent. Eventually, the water levels would decline, and so they did. So expecting the same to happen in terms of the water migrating down gradient towards porous, towards Harmon, and eventually going back to normal. The issue now is just how long it will take.
Jeffrey Marshall, Deputy Managing Director at the Water Resources Authority. He was speaking on Nationwide this morning on Tuesday. And Marshall is cautioning residents against swimming in the floodwater.
When we started monitoring it, was already flooded covering the road, and there are hoses already covered up at that point in time, and it's risen 7 feet since then. At the time, we were able to walk to our access point, but the first gauge that we installed has been completely covered, and we have to install a new gauge to continue monitoring the water level rise. So right now, the only access that you can take to go there is in a boat, but there is no way to access anything. It's not safe to go in the water. The water is also apparently contaminated. We saw a lot of scum, and the water had an odor, so there could be contamination from the different activities that were there. Might be sewage contamination and other things that's going on.
Jeffrey Marshall, Deputy Managing Director at the Water Resources Authority. Now, a police constable is dead following a motor vehicle collision on Anglican Street in Monique St. Anne on Monday. He has been identified as 34-year-old Christopher Kondapa. He was assigned to the Monique Traffic Department. Reports are that sometime after 2 p.m., the constable was driving his service motorcycle when it collided with a Suzuki Swift motorcar traveling in the opposite direction. The police say Kondapa received multiple injuries. He was transported to hospital where he was pronounced dead. The JCF says its chaplaincy unit is providing support to his family and colleagues. Turning to regional and international news now, regional news. The Turks and Caicos Islands has pledged up to $2 million in relief aid to Jamaica in the aftermath of Hurricane Melissa. Half of the sum is to come from the government, with the private sector expecting to match that amount. Premier Washington Missick made the announcement in a video message on Tuesday.
My government has approved a financial donation of $1 million to the government of Jamaica, and we are further calling on our private sector partners to match this contribution in recognition of the vital role the Jamaican workforce plays in our economy, for a combination cash support of $2 million.
Premier Missick says the move is a nod to the positive contributions of Jamaicans to TCI society.
On behalf of the government and people of the Turks and Caicos Islands, I extend heartfelt thoughts and prayers to the government and people of Jamaica as they respond to the devastating aftermath of Hurricane Melissa. The Turks and Caicos Islands stands in unwavering solidarity with our Caribbean family during this difficult time. Ours is a bond strengthened by shared history, culture, and the countless contributions of Jamaicans to our society, from education and healthcare to hospitality and national security.
Washington Missick, Premier of the Turks and Caicos Islands. In international news, a suicide bomber struck outside the gates of a district court in Islamabad, Pakistan on Tuesday, detonating his explosives next to a police car. The blast killed 12 people and wounded 27 others. The blast was heard miles away and came at a busy time of day when the area outside the court is typically crowded with hundreds of visitors attending court hearings. Witnesses described scenes of mayhem in the immediate aftermath of the explosion. The attacker reportedly first tried to enter the court premises but failed. The Interior Minister alleged that the attack was carried out by Indian-backed elements and Afghan Taliban proxies linked to the Pakistani Taliban. He did not provide any evidence for the claim. A breakaway faction of the Pakistani Taliban claimed responsibility for the attack, but shortly after, a commander from the group sent WhatsApp messages insisting they had not made any such claim. And that's it for the news at 12. Up next, sports.